The galaxy was wide, bright, and full of ancient civilizations. But the Aelari Union had never felt smaller than in the moment their distress signal left their dying world. The signal, a long cry for help, carried a simple message. We request aid. Any empire, any ally, any force, please answer. On the planet Cerealis Prime, where pale forests shimmered with turquoise light, and the air hummed like soft music, fear was spreading like frost. The Karkan Dominion had already taken 3 colonies. Their ships were fast, their soldiers were ruthless, their goals were simple: expand, conquer, and leave no resistance behind. The Aelari were brilliant thinkers, peaceful builders, and gentle diplomats. They valued harmony above all things, and now, harmony was collapsing around them. Inside the council hall, made of crystal-like vines shaped into tall arches, High Counselor Ilaris waited in front of the main holoscreen. Her delicate features trembled. Her species had soft, translucent skin that revealed the glow of their bioluminescent blood. That glow now pulsed with fear. Counselors whispered behind her. Will anyone answer? Will the core empires hear us? Will they care? They must, another insisted. They always speak of unity. They always speak of preserving peace. But even those hopeful words felt weak. A ping echoed through the chamber. A response. All voices fell silent. No one breathed. The holoscreen flickered, and an emblem appeared, red and blue, with a circle of stars around a single planet. Not a core empire, not a familiar ally, not one of the polite, predictable civilizations of the Inner Ring. It was from Earth, a death world. Gasps rippled through the chamber. One counselor nearly fainted. Earth? Impossible. No, 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 another muttered. We asked for help, not monsters. Ilaris swallowed hard. Stories about Earth had drifted through the galaxy for decades. Most were exaggerated, but all were terrifying. Earth was a planet of heavy gravity, violent storms, unstable terrain, poisonous plants, and predators with too many teeth. And humans, those who lived there, were said to be more frightening than their world. Tough, unpredictable, too adaptable. Deathworlders. Before anyone could protest, a second light blinked. A fleet was approaching. Already, faster than any expected, the humans had not only answered, they were on their way. Within hours, the sky above Cerealis Prime shimmered with a warp tear like burning silver. A fleet emerged, dark, sharp, and heavily armored. Their ships were not elegant like Aelari vessels. They were rugged, practical, built to survive hell and fire. Everyone stared upward in pure shock. One Aelari guard whispered, "They actually came." Ilaris tried to steady herself. "Prepare a landing zone. We cannot appear fearful." But she was fearful. Everyone was. When the human landing craft descended toward the meeting platform, a windstorm followed, blowing with enough force to send fragile Aelari scrambling for balance. The landing craft touched down with a heavy metallic thud that vibrated through the platform. A hiss of escaping air, a ramp lowering, footsteps slow, controlled, firm. 3 humans walked out first, wearing gray-blue armor that looked designed for war zones. At their center was Commander Evelyn Cross, a tall woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight braid. Her face was serious, unreadable, but not unkind. Behind her came engineers, medical crews, analysts, far more support personnel than soldiers. This confused the Aelari. If humans were as violent as the rumors said, why bring so many helpers? Ilaris stepped forward, heart racing. Welcome to Cerealis Prime. I am High Counselor Ilaris. We did not expect Earth to be the first to answer. Commander Cross bowed her head slightly. Your message reached us. You asked for aid. We came. Her voice was steady, deep, and strangely reassuring. Yet many Aelari still trembled. Ilaris forced politeness into her tone. Your kindness is appreciated, but are you certain you understand the enemy we face? Cross nodded once. The Karkan Dominion. Yes, we've studied them. They will attack without mercy, another counselor warned. They are aggressive, and they show no fear. Cross exchanged a subtle glance with her officers, then returned her gaze to the Aelari. "Neither do humans," she said simply. The words struck the council like thunder. "No fear? None at all?" Ilaris felt her stomach twist. "Your world, it is said to be dangerous. Forgive me, but are you truly prepared for what is coming?" Cross actually smiled, small, calm, and confident. "High Counselor, what you call dangerous, we call Tuesday." The humans behind her chuckled quietly. The Ilari did not understand the joke, but they understood one thing. These people were not afraid. Aelari escorts guided the humans into the council hall. As they walked, human boots clanked loudly on the crystal-like floors. The sound echoed like distant thunder. The Aelari moved lightly, almost floating while the humans walked with the weight of gravity itself. Entering the hall, the humans studied the glowing architecture with fascination. Engineers murmured to one another about material science and energy efficiency. Nothing about them suggested savagery or chaos. Their professionalism surprised many Aelari. At the central round table, the first strategy meeting began. Holograms displayed maps of Aelari space, colony losses, and estimated enemy movement. Aelari advisors explained tremblingly how their defensive fleets had crumbled, how their colonies had fallen, how their forces were too unprepared to fight. When they finished, there was a heavy silence. Then Commander Cross stepped forward. "What you have endured is terrible," she said. "But it is not hopeless. The Dominion is strong, but predictable. They rely on fear. They expect you to retreat." Ilaris lowered her gaze. "We are not a warlike people." "Then it is good," Cross replied, "that humans are." Again, whispers. Fear. Curiosity. Human specialists began analyzing battle data projected into the air. One pointed out weak points in Dominion formations. Another explained how Earth ships could take hits from Karkon plasma weapons better than Aelari vessels. Even more surprising was how the humans discussed their own limitations openly, where their armor was weaker, where they needed reinforcements, how to adjust strategies based on local conditions. They were honest, practical, and focused. It was refreshing. After almost 2 hours, the meeting paused so the humans could acclimate to the lower gravity. The difference made them move lightly, almost too bouncy. One Aelari guard observed them stretching and adjusting their equipment. "Strange," she whispered. "They look like predators, but act like protectors." Commander Cross overheard and turned. "We're used to being misunderstood." The guard froze. Cross softened her tone. "Earth is dangerous. Yes. But that taught us something valuable. We survive by helping each other. No one makes it alone." That simple sentence changed something in the room. Humans did not come to conquer. They came because someone cried for help. And they answered. By evening, a new fear had grown among the Aelari, but it was not fear of the humans. It was fear for what might happen to them. The Aelari were fragile. Humans were strong. If they died fighting for Aelari worlds, Ilaris approached Cross privately. "Commander, Earth owes us nothing. Yet you came. Why?" Cross looked toward the stars through the hall's open ceiling. "Because once, long ago, when humanity was struggling, no one came. We promised ourselves that when we had the strength, we would not ignore others the way we were ignored." Ilaris felt a lump in her throat. She had expected monsters. Instead, she found empathy. "Thank you," she whispered sincerely. Cross nodded. "Prepare your people. Tomorrow, we begin planning your defense." And so, on a calm night under Cerealis Prime's glowing blue moons, the Ilari finally realized the truth. They asked for aid, but the Deathworlders of Earth came instead, and that might be the only reason they still had a chance to survive. Morning light spread across Cerealis Prime like a soft blue wave, touching forests, towers, and quiet streets. But inside the Aelari Council Hall, there was no calm. Humans moved with purpose. Aelari advisors whispered nervously. Holograms flickered with maps and read enemy lines. Commander Evelyn Cross stood at the center table, her arms folded behind her back. Around her, Human officers worked like a well-trained machine. They talked quickly but clearly, making adjustments, highlighting routes, and marking danger zones. Their movements were sharp, confident, without hesitation. To the Alari, this was incredible. To the humans, this was normal. Alari High Counselor Ilaris entered the hall slowly. Her pale robes shimmered in the morning light, but her eyes were shadowed with worry. Cross noticed at once. "Did you sleep, Counselor?" "Only a little," Ilaris admitted. "I kept thinking about our fallen colonies." Cross nodded softly. "Fear keeps you awake. Responsibility keeps you awake longer." She tapped the hologram. "But we will stop the Dominion." Her certainty felt like a warm shield. Ilaris didn't understand how humans could sound so sure while facing such a brutal enemy. But Cross didn't brag. She simply believed what she said. Humans had a strange strength, quiet, steady, unshakable. Later that day, Cross led the Alari leaders to a large training field. It had been specially prepared for human exercises. Though the Alari were still unsure what to expect. "Today," Cross said, "you will see how humans prepare for war." Alari guards lined up in neat rows, their glowing eyes wide with curiosity. The first human squad stepped forward. They wore full environmental suits, each one fitted with dark armor plates and breathing gear. Though Sorellus Prime was safe, humans always trained for the worst possible conditions. A timer beeped. "Begin," Cross ordered. Immediately, the humans sprinted into a field filled with environmental challenges. Storm simulators activated. Artificial wind roared. Lightning flashed between tall metal poles. Claw-like mechanical drones lunged at the soldiers. Mud traps opened. Gravity pads shifted suddenly between light and heavy pull. The Alari gasped at every step. "How can they move? It's chaos," one counselor cried. "This is dangerous," another whispered. "Yes," Cross agreed simply. "But Earth is more dangerous." The Alari went silent. A human soldier got knocked down by a drone's heavy strike, but he rolled, stood, and kept running as if nothing happened. Another slipped into a mud trap, pulled herself out, and kept moving. No one panicked. No one hesitated. To humans, hardship was only a part of training. Ilaris spoke softly, almost to herself. "So this is the strength of a Deathworld species," Cross heard her. "This is the strength of survival," she corrected. "Our world taught us to keep fighting even when everything seems impossible." When the training ended, the humans lined up again, breathing hard but smiling. Their commander nodded proudly. "They fear nothing," whispered an Alari guard. Cross turned her head. "Not true. Humans do fear. But we don't let fear stop us." That single sentence struck the Alari deeper than any weapon. It revealed a truth they had never understood. Humans were not fearless. They were brave. Bravery was choosing action in the presence of fear, and that was something the Alari admired deeply. The next meeting was held in the Situation Strategy Chamber, a dark room filled with holographic stars and routes. The Karkon Dominion's bright red borders glowed like burning wounds on the map. Alari nervously watched as Cross and her analysts projected the latest enemy movements. "We estimate," said Lieutenant Rafe, "that the Dominion will strike the system of Lyrian Beta within 4 days." Ilaris stiffened. "There are still 2 million civilians on Lyrian Beta." Rafe nodded grimly. "We intend to evacuate them." "How?" an Alari general asked. "We have too few ships." Cross pointed to the human fleet hovering above Sorellus Prime. "We don't." A murmur spread through the chamber. "Humans will assist?" Ilaris asked carefully. "Of course," Cross said. "We did not come to watch you fall." Another advisor raised a trembling hand. "Commander, the Dominion's ships are terrifying. They tear through shields. They attack without warning. They show no mercy." Cross rested her palm on the table. "Let me show you something." She tapped the holo screen. It switched to footage, grainy, old, but intense. Human warships fighting in a storm of cosmic debris. Plasma bursts. Meteor fragments. Black smoke. And yet the human ships survived. weaving through impossible chaos. Even damaged, they fought fiercely. This, Cross said, was during the early expansion years. Before we had proper technology or alliances, we faced waves of dangers while building our place in the galaxy. An Ailari general whispered, "How did you endure?" Cross didn't smile. Her face stayed calm and firm. "We endured because giving up meant extinction." Silence fell like snow. The Ailari stared at the footage, at the determination of humans fighting alone, and understood something important. Humans were shaped by struggle, not born from cruelty. Their strength came from necessity, not desire. Cross switched the hologram to a new projection. The evacuation plan for Lyrian Beta. "This operation will bring your people to safety," she said. "Human engineers are already modifying your transports. Our ships will defend the escape routes. The Dominion will find us ready." Ilaris's voice wavered. "Why do you help us so much?" Cross looked at her steadily. "Because when a peaceful species is attacked, the galaxy should not stand aside. And Earth refuses to stand aside." Her words burned with conviction. Hours later, Cross stood beside the Ailari on a balcony overlooking the city. The blue moons were rising, casting cool light over the crystal towers. Ilaris stepped forward, hands clasped nervously. "Commander Cross, may I ask something personal?" "Go ahead. Are your people always so strong, so ready for danger?" Cross considered her answer carefully. "Humans are not naturally strong. We become strong because our world tests us every day." Ilaris tilted her head. "Your world truly must be harsh." "It is," Cross admitted. "Storms that destroy cities, animals that hunt in packs, diseases that change faster than we can study them. Earth taught us to adapt quickly, or die." Ilaris shivered. "No wonder they call you Deathworlders." Cross sighed. "Yes, that word follows us everywhere. But it is not who we are. We are not here to bring death. We are here to prevent it." Slowly, the Ailari counselor nodded. She understood now. Deathworlders were survivors, not monsters. That night, the humans began preparing their ships for the evacuation mission. Engines roared. Cargo bays opened. Medical units were arranged. Pilots checked their gear. Engineers crawled over every surface of the Ailari transports, strengthening them with human technology. Ailari watched in awe. Humans worked with incredible speed. No complaining. No hesitation. They simply did what needed to be done. One young Ailari engineer approached a human mechanic. "Why do you work so hard for us?" The human wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because you asked for help." The Ailari blinked, surprised. "Is that really all?" The mechanic shrugged. "That's enough, isn't it?" The simplicity of the answer stunned the Ailari. Humans didn't need reward, or alliance promises, or political advantage. They helped because someone needed help. That made them different from every other empire. At dawn, as the human ships lifted into the sky for the Lyrian Beta mission, a strange feeling spread through the Ailari people. Hope. Not because the Dominion was weak, not because the danger had vanished, but because they were not facing it alone. The Ailari had asked the galaxy for aid, and the Deathworlders of Earth had come not with fear, but with determination strong enough to challenge the dark. The Dominion would attack soon. The war would grow worse. But something powerful had changed. The Ailari were no longer helpless. They had allies who did not fear the dark. The space around Lyrian Beta had always been peaceful. Its twin suns shone softly. Its rings glittered like dusted jewels. But now, the stars trembled with danger. A dark red fleet approached, sharp, jagged, hungry. The Carcon Dominion had arrived. Their ships were shaped like metal predators, wide-jawed and covered in armor spikes. They moved in a tight formation, scanning the system for Ailari survivors. The Dominion had crushed 3 Ailari colonies already, and they believed this one would fall just as easily. But something unexpected glimmered near Lyrian Beta. Human ships. The Earth Alliance fleet floated above the planet like a wall of steel. The largest ship, the EAS Titan, was shaped like a massive spearhead, built to tear through storms and radiation fields. Around it, smaller destroyers and frigates moved with deadly precision. Commander Evelyn Cross stood on the Titan's command deck, staring calmly at the incoming enemy. Her officers waited for orders, nerves steady, eyes sharp. Lieutenant Rafe spoke first. "Dominion ships entering range, Commander. Their weapons are hot." Cross took a slow breath. "And ours?" "Always ready." She nodded. "Begin Phase 1. Evacuation ships move now." Below, on the surface of Lyrian Beta, chaos had taken over the main city. Families rushed to transports. Children clung to parents. Alarms echoed through the streets. The sky was already darkening with shadows from the Dominion fleet. But then large human shuttles descended like thunderbirds. Aelari civilians stared in shock as human soldiers sprinted out, forming protective lines. They guided civilians with calm voices, directing them toward evacuation ships. "Move quickly but stay organized," a human medic shouted. "We will protect you." One young Aelari girl trembled, unable to climb the ramp. A human engineer lifted her gently, placed her inside, and gave a reassuring smile. "Safe now," he said simply. Even in the middle of danger, humans remained grounded. Aelari noticed this again and again. Humans were not fearless, but they were calm in the storm. Above them, the Dominion ships opened fire. Bright red beams streaked toward the evacuation zone. The ground shook. Air rippled with heat. Human anti-air cannons shot back immediately, filling the sky with blue energy bursts. Several Dominion shots were intercepted mid-air, exploding before they reached the civilians. Commander Cross's voice echoed from orbit through every human and Aelari comlink. "Hold the line. Evacuate them all." Her voice was steady, strong enough to anchor a whole army. In orbit, the Dominion fleet accelerated. Their leader, a tall, armored commander named Vorak, stood inside his flagship. His voice rumbled like grinding metal. "We crush the weak," he growled. "Their allies cannot stop us." His officers nodded, all believing victory was certain. But as the human ships moved, Vorak's confidence cracked. "How?" one officer whispered. Humans flew like they belonged inside chaos. They cut through asteroid fragments without slowing. They redirected Dominion missiles with sudden, sharp turns. They flew too close to plasma storms, close enough to burn most ships, but humans treated it like routine navigation. Humans fought like they had trained for worse. Because they had. On the Titan, alarms blared. Dominion flagship charging main cannon. Cross didn't blink. Angle shields. Prepare counterstrike. A massive bolt of red energy shot toward the Titan. The human ship shook violently, its shields flaring bright blue. Officers grabbed consoles to steady themselves. "Shields holding," Rafe shouted. Cross raised her hand. "Fire." All forward cannons blasted at once. Blue and white beams collided with the Dominion ship. Its armor cracked. Fires spread along its hull. For the first time, the Dominion hesitated. Vorak snarled. Deathworlders. He knew the rumors. He had dismissed them. But now he saw the truth. Earth was not weak. Earth was not civilized in the same soft way as other species. Earth was forged in hardship. And they fought like it. On Lyrian Beta's surface, the battle grew louder. Human soldiers moved through debris and smoke with their characteristic determination. Aelari guards fought beside them, finding courage they never knew they had. When a Dominion dropship crashed nearby, Aelari soldiers flinched, but humans charged forward, covering the Aelari with quick, practiced movements. One Aelari guard named Cyril watched a human soldier sprint across an open field under heavy fire. "He will die," she cried. But the human dove behind a broken wall fired 3 precise shots and disabled the Dominion attackers. Then he waved at Cyril to move forward. "Come on, we've got civilians to save." Cyril felt something ignite inside her, something powerful, hope. Humans were inspiring them not by words, but by example. The last group of civilians boarded the final evacuation ship. Engines roared. The ship lifted off. "Evacuation complete," the human ground commander reported. Cross's voice answered immediately. "All ground teams return to orbit. Prepare for Phase 2. The Aelari breathed in relief. But the humans knew better. The hardest part was coming next. When the evacuation ships broke through the planet's atmosphere, the Dominion fleet tried to intercept them, but the Earth Alliance stood between. Rafe announced. Dominion ships closing in. They want the escape vessels. Cross's eyes hardened. Then we hold the line. The Titan shifted forward, placing itself directly between the evac ships and the Dominion. Human destroyers formed a protective formation. Their engines bright like blue fire. The Dominion fired first. Plasma beams, missile clusters, energy blasts, human shields flared, metal groaned, but the formation held. Cross pointed to the tactical screen. Redirect power to forward shields. Fire on my mark. The crew obeyed instantly. Cross waited. Mark. The Titan's main cannons fired again, cutting through the nearest Dominion cruiser. The ship exploded in a burst of red flame. 2 more incoming, Rafe warned. Cross's voice remained calm. Destroyer Wing 3. Engage. 3 human destroyers surged forward like charging wolves. They circled the Dominion ships, firing rapidly, using tight maneuvers that would break most pilots' bones. The destroyers disabled both enemy ships within seconds, but the Dominion still had numbers. Vorak slammed his fist into his console. These humans, they fight like demons. Crush them. His entire fleet advanced. Cross stared at the screen. They're changing tactics. They want to overwhelm us. Rafe tightened his jaw. We won't break. Of course not, Cross said, because humans didn't break. They adapted. On the ground, rescued Aelari gathered near evacuation zones on Ceralis Prime, watching live updates. When they saw human ships shielding their escape vessels, many began to cry not from fear, but from gratitude. They protect strangers, an Aelari elder whispered. They do not know us, and still they fight for us. Ilaris placed her glowing hand over her heart. She had never felt so humbled. Back in orbit, the Titan trembled under heavy fire. Sparks flew across the command deck. Shields at 40%, an officer shouted. Cross's voice cut through the noise like steel. We hold. Push them back. The Titan turned sharply, a move so dangerous most ships couldn't survive it, and fired all rear cannons at the Dominion's flank. 3 enemy ships exploded. Rafe laughed breathlessly. Commander, you're going to give the Dominion a heart attack. Cross didn't smile. Good, but then something unexpected happened. Aelari ships, damaged, shaking, barely functional, yet they flew toward the battlefield. Ilaris's voice came through comlink, nervous but determined. This is High Counselor Ilaris. The Aelari fleet will assist you. Cross shook her head. Ilaris, your ships are too fragile. Perhaps, Ilaris said softly. But courage is not born from strength. Courage is born from inspiration. And you have inspired us. For a moment, Cross was silent. Then she spoke with pride. Very well. Form up beside us. The Dominion expected weak allies. They found united warriors instead. Humans and Aelari fought side by side, shielding each other, covering weak points. Striking with sudden precision, the Dominion began to lose ground. Finally, when the evacuation ships reached the safety of warp distance, Cross gave the order. All forces, retreat to assigned coordinates. We have what we came for. Human ships pulled back in perfect formation. The Aelari followed, anxious but alive. The Dominion tried to pursue, but were too damaged, too confused, too overwhelmed by the unexpected power of humanity. Vorak roared in fury. Deathworlders, this is not over. He was right. It wasn't. But for the first time, the Aelari had survived an attack. Because humans, the Deathworlders of Earth, stood between them and destruction. And the Dominion had finally learned something important. Humans were not to be underestimated. The evacuation of Lyrian Beta had been a success. But the cost of the battle echoed across every ship returning to Ceralis Prime. Engines hummed quietly. Lights flickered from damage. Human and Aelari crews moved slowly, exhausted yet still alert. Commander Evelyn Cross stood on the command bridge of the EAS Titan, staring at the stars. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder. A faint burn mark crossed her armored sleeve. But she barely noticed. Her mind was fixed on one truth. The Dominion would come again. She spoke softly. Status report. Lieutenant Rafe wiped sweat from his brow as he checked the screens. Hull damage on all ships. Shields need full restoration. Ammo low. Crew tired. Cross nodded. She expected nothing less. And the Ilari? Their fleets returned safely. Casualties low. Spirits surprisingly high. Cross allowed herself a small breath of relief. The Ilari had not broken. They had grown stronger. But she knew the Dominion was only wounded, not defeated. When the Titan arrived at Cerelis Prime, huge crowds of Ilari gathered near the landing platforms. They weren't screaming or panic-stricken this time. They stood tall, glowing softly in the moonlight, waiting with gratitude and awe. Human soldiers stepped off transport ramps, battered but smiling. Medical teams hurried to support them. Ilari citizens reached out to offer water, blankets, and gentle touches of thanks. Their shimmering skin brightened with emotion. One Ilari child approached a human medic with wide eyes. "Did you save us?" The medic knelt. "No," he said kindly. "We helped you save yourselves." The child didn't fully understand, but she understood enough to smile. Inside the council hall, High Counselor Ilaris addressed the humans with deep respect. Her voice shook, not with fear, but with emotion. "Commander Cross," she began. "You saved millions. You protected our world when our own fleets could not. The Ilari owe you a debt that cannot be measured." Cross clasped her hands behind her back. "You owe us nothing. Your people asked for aid, and we answered." Ilaris stepped closer. "But you did not only answer. You inspired us. Our soldiers fought with bravery because you showed them how." Cross shook her head. "We did nothing special. Anyone would have stepped in." "No," Ilaris said firmly. "Not anyone. Only humans did." Silence filled the hall. Humans had heard skepticism before. Suspicion. Fear of Deathworlders. But this was different. This was trust. Ilaris lifted her glowing hand. "Commander Cross, the Ilari Union wishes to form a permanent alliance with Earth." Gasps spread among the Ilari and humans alike. Rafe whispered, "A permanent alliance? That's huge." Cross studied Ilaris's face. She saw sincerity there. Hope, respect. But she also saw fear of the future, fear of more battles. She answered carefully. "An alliance is not a small matter. It will require commitment, shared responsibility, and trust." "We understand," Ilaris said softly. "But we want it. We need it." Cross looked around the room. At her officers. At the Ilari leaders. At the tired but hopeful faces watching her decision. Finally, she nodded. "Then Earth accepts." Ilari light spread across the chamber like a sunrise. Joy rippled through the crowd. They were no longer alone in the void. But the celebration did not last long. Hours later, alarms blared across Cerelis Prime. A sudden message flashed across every screen. "Dominion fleet detected. Massive force inbound." The council hall fell silent. Rafe ran to Cross's side. "They're coming back, Commander. And this time, they're bringing everything." Cross's jaw tightened. "Of course they are. They want to crush your hope before it grows." Ilaris's voice trembled. "Can we fight them again?" "Our fleets. They are still damaged." Cross placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Yes, because you won't be fighting alone." Her voice echoed with strength, anchoring the whole room. "We stand together now." The next few hours were a blur of preparation. On the Titan, engineers repaired hulls, installed emergency shields, and reloaded weapons. Human pilots reviewed new flight patterns. The ship's medical unit treated wounded crew while still preparing for more. On Ilari ships, something incredible happened. The Ilari stopped trembling. Their movements were purposeful, strong. They reinforced their own hulls with human materials. They trained side by side with human soldiers, learning new tactics. They were no longer the same frightened people from earlier days. They had learned determination from humanity. Finally, the Dominion fleet arrived. It was larger, heavier, burning red across the stars like an angry storm. Commander Vorak stood on his bridge, eyes blazing. "This time," he snarled, "nothing stops us." But when his scanners lit up the battle space, his fury turned into confusion. Human ships and Alari ships stood together in tight formation, united, ready. Cross's voice came through his comlink. "Dominion forces, this is Commander Evelyn Cross of the Earth Alliance. You have attacked innocent civilians and destroyed peaceful colonies. This ends now." Vorak bared his teeth. "You think your Deathworld strength can stop us?" Cross's eyes narrowed. "Not strength," she said. The battle ignited instantly. Dominion ships fired first, unleashing a wave of red energy. But this time, the Aelari shields reinforced with human technology held strong. Human destroyers launched forward, moving like lightning, firing precise bursts that tore into enemy formations. Aelari fighters followed close behind, inspired by the humans' bold movements. They moved faster than ever before. Guided by new training and renewed courage, the sky exploded with color: blue, red, white, gold. The Dominion pressed harder, sending their strongest warships directly at the Titan. Rafe shouted, "Incoming! Enemy flagships!" Cross stood firm. "All power to forward shields. Prepare the atmospheric dive maneuver." Her officers froze. "That maneuver is too risky," Rafe cried. "We tested it only in simulations." Cross's voice stayed steady. "It will work. Human ships are built for harsh conditions, and Ceralis Prime's atmosphere is stable enough for a controlled dive." Ilaris, watching from a hololink, whispered, "Commander, what are you doing?" Cross answered calmly, "We are giving the Dominion something they do not expect." The Titans surged forward straight toward the planet. Dominion ships gave chase, confused. They expected retreat, not a dive. The Titan pierced the upper atmosphere. Fire licked its hull. Heat shields glowed white. The ship shook violently. But humans aboard held steady. Then Cross gave the order. "Now, break upward. Flank them." The Titan shot back upward like a rocket. Dominion ships that followed were caught off guard by the gravity shift and turbulence. Several lost formation. Others spun out of control. Human destroyers and Aelari fighters struck from the sides, delivering devastating hits. The Dominion formation collapsed. Vorak roared in fury. "Impossible!" "How?" Cross answered simply. "Humans learn to fight in the most unforgiving places. Space is calm compared to Earth." With their formation broken, the Dominion fleet began retreating. Their weapons dimmed. Engines flared weakly. Vorak stared at the screens in disbelief. Defeated? By them? He slammed his fists down, but he knew the truth. They had lost. Earth and Aelari forces held the battlefield. The Dominion fled into the stars. When the last enemy ship vanished from sensors, the Titan's bridge erupted into relieved cheers. Aelari voices joined human ones in celebration. Cross watched the stars slowly return to calm, her heart heavy with tired pride. They had survived. Together, later that night, on the surface of Ceralis Prime, a joint ceremony was held. Humans stood beside Aelari under the twin moons. Ilaris stepped forward, her glow bright with emotion. "Today," she said, "we learned that strength does not come from violence. It comes from unity. From courage. From standing together, even when afraid." She looked at the humans, scarred, tired, but smiling. "When we asked for aid, we did not expect Deathworlders. We expected anyone else. But we were wrong to fear you. For you did not bring destruction. You brought hope." The crowd glowed brighter. Cross bowed her head. "You fought bravely today. Humanity is proud to stand with you." Ilaris extended her hand. "Then, let our worlds face the future together." Cross shook her hand firmly. The alliance was sealed. The stars above seemed brighter than before. And so, the Aelari discovered something powerful. Deathworlders were not monsters. They were protectors. They were allies. They were friends. And with humanity at their side, the Aelari Union would never be helpless again.